Is taxing the rich a good idea? Let's look at it through the lens of a classroom. Imagine your teacher assigns a big group project. Everyone's supposed to pitch in, but then the teacher changes the rules. Let's just have one student do almost all the work. They've got more supplies and a little extra time, so they can cover for everyone else. At first, it seems fine. The project gets turned in, but this keeps happening. More projects, more reliance on that one student. After a while, that student feels burned out, frustrated, and maybe even asks to switch classes. Meanwhile, the rest of the group learns less, contributes less, and the whole class suffers. That's basically the idea behind taxing the rich to create prosperity. Just like in school, piling everything on one person or group of people doesn't inspire better results. It backfires. The promise is simple and appealing. If billionaires just paid their fair share, we could fund healthcare, housing, college, everything we want. It sounds like common sense. Rich people have plenty of money, so taxing them more should mean more resources for everyone else.
We will tax the rich!
That's why slogans like tax the rich are so powerful in politics. But economics tells us to look one step deeper. Taxes don't just raise money, they also change behavior. When tax rates rise, people make different choices about where to live, how to earn, or how much to report on their returns. That means the expected revenue often never shows up. Economists call this the difference between static estimates and dynamic reality. On paper, the tax hike looks like free money. In practice, people react. This isn't just theory, it's history. In the mid-20th century, America's top income tax rates were sky high, above 90%. Sounds like a jackpot for the government, right? But in practice, revenue as a share of the economy stayed about the same as it is today. Why? Because people avoided those rates with loopholes and shelters. The star student wasn't doing more, they were finding ways to do less. In the 1960s, President John F. Kennedy pushed for tax cuts, arguing that the high rates were stifling risk-taking and investment. The top rate fell from 91% to 70%. Afterward, the economy grew at over 5% a year and unemployment hit record lows. By the late 1970s, stagflation set in, slow growth, high inflation, and unemployment, even as the top rate was still 70%. That's when President Ronald Reagan cut it down to 28%. Critics said it would wreck the budget. Instead, the economy recovered, millions of jobs were created, and the share of income taxes paid by the top 1% actually went up. Over and over, history shows the same lesson. When you overload one student, they do less, set fair expectations, and they often do more. And yet we still never learn. In modern times, governments still experiment with high taxes. France's 75% millionaire tax made headlines. But instead of filling government coffers, it raised pocket change. Just a few hundred million euros in a budget of tens of billions. Meanwhile, high earners and celebrities literally left the country. Within 2 years, the policy was scrapped. Maryland's millionaire tax was supposed to bring in $106 million. Instead, the next year, the state collected $100 million less. Why? About a third of Maryland's millionaires disappeared from the tax rolls. Some moved, some reported less. The project fell apart. California and New York keep losing high earners to states like Florida and Texas. In 2022 alone, California lost $24 billion in income to outmigration. That's like losing your best equipped student mid-semester and watching the school across town benefit from their work instead. Even if everyone stayed put, the math ain't mathin'. Take the idea of a 70% top federal tax rate on multimillionaires. Nonpartisan estimates say it would raise about $25 billion a year after people adjusted their behavior. That's less than 0.5% of federal spending. It's real money, but nowhere near close to paying for trillion-dollar programs like Medicare for All or the Green New Deal. Or consider wealth taxes. Europe tried them. Most countries repealed them because they were nearly impossible to enforce, raised barely any revenue, and drove wealth out of the country. France's version ended up losing the country more in economic activity than it gained in taxes. And here's the kicker: even if the government left us alone and instead confiscated every dollar of wealth, from every billionaire in America liquidating their companies, selling their homes, cashing in their stocks, it wouldn't cover a single year of federal spending. The entire fortune of every billionaire combined is around $5 trillion. The federal government now spends more than $6 trillion per year. After that one-time cash grab, the money would be gone, and so would the jobs, companies, and investments those fortunes represent. The numbers make it clear there just isn't enough at the top to fund everything politicians promise. There's another claim we need to address, that the rich don't pay taxes. The numbers tell a very different story. According to IRS data, the top 1% of earners pay about 40% of all federal income taxes. The top 10% pay about 70%. Meanwhile, the bottom half of taxpayers, tens of millions of households, pay almost no federal income tax at all. That doesn't mean the tax code is perfect. It's thousands of pages long with loopholes and carve-outs that clever accountants know how to exploit. Some individuals and companies do find ways to minimize what they owe. But when you look at the system as a whole, the wealthy already shoulder the vast majority of the bill. So the slogan that the rich don't pay taxes flips reality on its head. They do pay. And they pay a lot. The real question isn't whether to make them contribute. It's whether loading even more onto them is effective or just. Because this isn't just about numbers, it's also about fairness. Frederick Bastiat called it legal plunder when the law takes from some people to give to others. And F.A. Hayek pointed out that punishing a small group with discriminatory rules isn't justice, it's envy. Think about that project again. Real fairness isn't saying one person has more supplies, so they should do everything. That might feel satisfying for a day, but it kills motivation, creates resentment, and leaves the group worse off in the long run. Society works the same way. Prosperity comes from creating a setup where everyone has a reason to bring their best work every day. So what actually builds prosperity? Economists point to incentives and broad participation. When tax systems encourage production and investment, more people enter the market with new ideas and businesses. That creates growth, which expands the tax base. A larger base at lower rates often produces more stable revenue than a smaller base facing higher rates. When millions of people are motivated to work, save, and invest, the result is a larger economy, higher wages, and a government that collects revenue from growth instead of punishment. This is why many economists argue that prosperity is not a fixed pie to be sliced up, but something that grows when the right incentives are in place. The lesson is simple. Prosperity is built when people are free to create and are rewarded for doing so. So, can we tax our way to prosperity? Not really. Just like in a group project, piling all the work on one student doesn't make the group stronger. It makes everyone weaker. If you like this video, drop a comment and check out fee.org for more breakdowns that turn confusing economic slogans into simple, clear lessons. And subscribe for more Fee Explains, where we demystify economics one fallacy at a time.